What's going on YouTube? Sim with Vengeance coming back with another video here. And today we're going to play a series versus, I don't know, a double A series, I guess, a 4-game series. Uh, First game of the series. I haven't been doing too well to start out, but I started to pick it up. I started out like at 158 when I started playing, and all of a sudden, a couple things go your way. You get a little confidence, like right there. Get a base hit like that, and all of a sudden it changes your whole mood of the situation. You're starting to hit the ball well, and the only problem I really have, like in all of the baseball games that I've had, is base running. The When you're on the bases and the catcher just sits the batter sits there, and sometimes like that he'll get a hit, but there's most times where I don't know, he just doesn't get the job done. You end up doing a job yourself. And, on this game, yes, they do have sliders, but I don't use them. But, see right there, that's a nice throw to first right there. But I want to talk about something today. This isn't basketball related, well, baseball related or anything. Maybe it's towards basketball. The other day, I was watching Sonicsgate on the internet. I watched the whole thing from start to finish, and I could not believe what I was watching. It was amazing. I loved it. It was probably the most compelling documentary I've probably ever watched. Really talked about how in depth it was to move Seattle to Oklahoma City and how fast it happened. And basically, the NBA put out a statement saying this could happen to anybody. They don't care about your history. They don't care about what you've done in the NBA. I mean, if I remember correctly, the '79 Sonics won the NBA title in 5 games against the Bullets. They had many great players like Gary Payton and Ray Allen and Sean Kemp. Nate McMillan, who's now coaching in the NBA. George Karl coached the Sonics to that '96 loss to my Bulls back in '96 when they went 72-10. So I found it really compelling. I'll put the link for it in the description if you want to watch it. Or if you were like me last night, who watched it on CNBC, and I find stuff out on the internet. People say stuff all the time, and I kind of found out like there's a few people that I saw watch it, and they after Twitter just blew up and about Sonicsgate, and I kind of agree with them. I say bring back the Sonics. I think the Sonics were robbed. Don't get me wrong. Oklahoma City has a great fan base. They have a great team down in OKC, but you can't replace history. It's almost like basically what they said in the movie was they pretty much got rid of all the Sonics history. They said, forget Gary Payton, forget Sean Kemp, forget Lenny Wilkins, or forget Nate McMillan or George Karl when he was there. They just said, screw all that, and they just moved him to OKC. In a heartbeat. They didn't even give him a fighting chance. And basically they said that it was kind of like the guy who sold the Sonics, and look at that right there. I didn't even try to go back to first. They pretty much said back there that was the Howard Schultz, the owner of the Sonics, back in 2006 sold the team to Clay Bennett, the current owner of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And basically, Clay Bennett's ultimate, thing was to get basketball to Oklahoma City. And unfortunately, it had to be the Sonics. I mean, who knows? Maybe I would have liked to see the Hornets there, but then again, I know I'm going to get a lot of talk about the Hornets too. Back in Hurricane Katrina hit, the Hornets did play in Oklahoma City. And, they had considerations of moving there, if I remember correctly. And the Hornets are still owned by the NBA. as of right now. So what I'm trying to say is anybody who's from Seattle recommending, like, I think that 2 or 3 months ago they came with a proposal in Seattle to rebuild a new arena there. And pretty much, I don't know if it's been, I don't know if David Stern's actually looked at it or not. I've heard about it. It looked like a legit deal, and pretty much, I think it was like $300 million or something like that for a new to re to either build a new arena or something like fix Key Arena or something like that. I don't know. I got hit by the pitch there. He's scared of me. But anyway, $300 million. I mean, that's more money than I'll make in my lifetime. That's more money than probably half of us watching this video will ever make in a lifetime. But that's a lot of money to invest in a new arena. And they if they get that done, they can, build that new arena and establish maybe even like I think they said something about an NHL team moving there too. Like or I know this sounds kind of crazy, and this sounds kind of stupid to most of y'all, but why not have, if they're not going to get rid of any of the teams, like if New Orleans is going to stay, and Sacramento and Charlotte, and we all know Charlotte's going to stay, even though they are the worst team in NBA history, God forbid that they actually get somebody good. But I hope they do, though. I mean, I feel bad. It's like embarrassing to see. Like, it's almost like you actually watch that happen, and I don't know. That's just bad. You can't possibly be that bad, but I guess you can. But back to the Sonics thing before I get too carried away with the Charlotte thing. There's other teams out there that are small market teams. Even in baseball and football, there's a lot of those small market teams that are really good. Like in baseball, you got the Milwaukee Brewers. They're a small market team, but they're pretty good. You got, I don't know if you consider Texas small market, but I think they're kind of like a upper class, if you want to call it. They're kind of in the upper class, not the rich folk, but they're upper class. They got a lot of talent. They got the money, and they go spend it. I love a franchise who's willing to put their money on something that's actually people actually come to see, and that's the players. And Seattle, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they draft Kevin Durant? I mean, seriously, didn't they draft Kevin Durant? The best player in the NBA? Didn't they have Jeff Green and Nick Collison, even though Collison's not as good as people say he should be? But he still comes off the bench and does his thing. He scores a few points here and there. He does his job. And you still got those teams that are high market teams like the Cubs and high market teams that are just horrible. Cubs have been horrible for years. They're my favorite team. God bless the Cubs, but you guys are horrible. I mean, one day it'll happen. I'm saying this right now. One day it'll happen, but they have all this money, and they don't spend it. Where does it all go? You guys already have enough renovations on Wrigley Field to make it, last for another 100 years. Wrigley Field's it's an honor to play in such a wonderful field, but yet they don't win, and it just baffles me. You have all this money, but you can't win. It's amazing. But Seattle was sort of a big market team as well. They weren't like the LA Lakers or the Boston Celtics or the Chicago Bulls or anything like that, but they did have history. I saw Gary Payton. He said he wanted to have his banner raised up as a Sonic, not as a member of the Thunders. He never played for the Thunder. I totally agree with him. But at the end of the documentary, it said that Clay Bennett owns all the rights to the Sonics until somebody buys that franchise. I think that's kind of a low blow to the Sonics history because he'll never raise a banner for Gary Payton or Sean Kemp. And I think that's just like tarnishing the NBA. Ooh, the barehanded play. Whew, nice. It tarnishes the NBA. And then you got teams that are out there willing to spend money, like the Portland Trailblazers. And yes, the Portland Trailblazers, they didn't have such a great year this year, but they've always been one of the better teams in the West over the past, 10, 15, 20 years. And I mean, you can't complain about that. They're at least consistent. I think at one point they were going to move the Portland Trailblazers back in like the early 2000s because they didn't have the money until someone stepped up and said, "Hey, I can do this. I can do that. I got the money. Let's go." I mean, let's fix the Rose Garden. Let's get new players in here because I want this franchise to stay here in Portland. I mean, and another thing, the people of Seattle, I've never been to Seattle, but I've heard it's such a wonderful city. And that team, that fan base, you guys got the Seahawks and you got the Mariners. I saw the Seahawks and what they did 2 years ago against New Orleans. And I've never seen such, hungry fans. They're so hungry. Their fans are so hungry to win. They haven't won since the Sonics won. They were the only, I don't know if you really watched any history about hockey or anything like that, but I think in 1917, a Seattle hockey team won the Stanley Cup in 1917, if I do believe. But not since 79, and I struck out that day. That's embarrassing. But not since 1979, a Seattle franchise has even won a championship. Seattle Seahawks have came close on a couple of occasions. They made the playoffs, but they went to the Super Bowl in '05. But unfortunately, or fortunately in some people's cases, the Steelers came up and beat their ass. I mean, it wasn't even a fair matchup in my opinion. But we're rolling towards this long video here, about 14 and a half minutes, and that topic right there, that took up the whole time. I want to know your opinion on it. My question to you guys is, just say your favorite team moved, like the Sonics had on Seattle. What would happen if, just say if you're a Bulls fan and they moved to, I don't know, St. Louis. Would you still be a fan of that team, or would you switch teams? Let me know. I mean, that's kind of an interesting question because who do Seattle fans cheer for? They can't cheer for the Sonics now. They boo against the Thunder. That's for sure. But if I were to lose my Buccaneers or my Cubs or my Blackhawks or my Bulls, I would definitely would not cheer for that. I'd still support having a Bulls or a sports franchise in Chicago or in Tampa Bay, but that's just my thing. But don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, like this video, and until next time, I'm Sim with Vengeance, and I'm out. Peace.